leading into what we're going to talk about in our Dreamers series, I got to thinking about the Dreamers Act and the people that are affected by it, who are most directly impacted by the yays and nays of whether or not we're going to support it, allow it, etc. Mm-hmm. And so it got me thinking, what is the real issue behind the Dreamers? So, one of the things, it's not one of those just catchphrases for the sake of it. It's a Development Relief and Education for Alien Minors Act. Mm-hmm. So it really does, in many ways, define what the program is supposed to offer them, which is a path towards real inclusion, citizenship. I mean, they were brought here as minors. The act is supposed to fulfill the promise of opportunity to get a good education and to pursue a life of wellness, etc., here in the United States. But we've seen a lot of things happen with Dreamers. Mm-hmm. First of all, I'd just love to get your thoughts in general about the issues that surround them and the fight for inclusion and respectability.
So I think that, for one, I think if something was put in place, it sounds like what it is was an act put in place to help them achieve the American dream. These kids didn't bring themselves here; they were brought here. Doesn't matter what you think about their parents; they've been here some of them since they were babies. I mean, like before less than 1 year old, and all they know is this country, pretty much. So at 15, 16, 17. How do you now tell a lot of these kids, well, sorry, you're not legal, so you just got to go? Mm-hmm. It sounds wrong to me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think if a government, one thing for me, if a government is going to stand up and say, this is what we're doing. Now, this party may not agree, this party may not agree, whatever, fine. But once it's set in place and signed, sealed, and delivered, I think we have an obligation to the country, to the integrity of the country, to stand by what we said, right? Mm-hmm. So, mm-hmm. If it was said that, this Dreamers Act is in effect for these kids, I don't see how we can come back, which has been done, and say, oh, we're pulling this back. Sorry. Somebody lied to you 16 years ago when you were 1. But now you can't fulfill that dream, because what does that do? How fair is that to the kid who's 1 year old and grew up believing in an American dream, right? And dreaming, you know what I'm saying? Because that's what it's all about. It's about dreaming for better. You know what I'm saying? That's my car. We all played That's My Car back in the day. Right. You know what I mean? Sitting on the porch and that nice car with them BBS rims goes by. Oh, that's my car right there. Right. So I mean, it's like
not the BBS rims,
the gold BBSs. But
you're taking me back to my BMW 626. I was all over Hawk's car, man.
That's it, man.
635 CSI, man. I wanted that puppy.
That was it. That was all anybody wanted in life. I wanted that more than I wanted food sometimes. But I mean, that's what it is, right? I mean, you dream to dream a bigger dream, right? And so these kids are growing up like, wow, they have shelter and food and water, stuff that they may not have had. And then, you're dreaming for, I want to own my own business. I want to go to college. I want to, whatever it is you want to do as you grow. And those dreams get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then finally somebody says, you know what? Sorry, this is over. And seemingly cut off your means. Now, we all know you can still make it despite anything. But if you seemingly cut off a kid's lifeline, that could be detrimental to somebody's life. So I think you got to be a lot more careful, when you make that kind of a decision than to just say, oh, well, not my problem. They're not legal. I'm worried about legal Americans. You know what I mean? So those are my thoughts.
What does it say about our political system, though, that you have people who are they're in the most influential position to be the face of, people who have lower moral standards. I mean, you're right. I think most people would say, if I see a kid crawl up on my steps, starving and hungry and needing just some, I don't want to come in. I don't need a place to sleep. But if you have a slice of bread
Right.
You know, to get me through the night to the next day and be okay with me sleeping on your porch. Can I have that?
Right.
I think most people would find a way to be a resource.
Right.
But to see essentially the same in these dreamers, to your point, and be so insensitive to go to your local politician and say, we want you to be against that. What do you think it says about our political system?
I'm gonna go back to what you have so well eloquated before. America's a business. That's what it tells me. It's a business, and so they're looking at the bottom line, and you can look at, and it doesn't matter if the bottom line is people. You know what I mean? People are no more than a resource to this country, to the government. You don't believe me? Look at the hospitals. You don't believe me? Look at the schools. The schools are developing people. The hospitals are supposed to be fixing people. And if the bottom line ain't right, we'll forego a few resources. I mean, it's just what it is. So I'm not surprised that we would look even further down our nose when it came to somebody who's not. You don't have paperwork for here?
Where's your paperwork?
Yeah.
Where's your paperwork?
You don't get, hey, look, you don't got no freedom papers? No. So, I mean, it's not surprising. It speaks to integrity. And I think that's something that, man, I feel like if you don't keep nothing else in your life, please keep your integrity, because that's so valuable. And people throw it away without thinking twice. You're
backing up to what we're going to get into a little bit when we actually talk about our focus on dreamers in the next segment. But what's interesting to me is it also kind of mirrors some things that we talked about over on Game Time with the draft and the NFL. I think there are elements there of, you're trying to protect something for people who aren't taking advantage of opportunity they have. Mm-hmm. And yet you don't want somebody else to get it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, but they're going to take advantage of it. They're going to run. They're not only going to run the rock for you, they're going to score every fourth touch. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, you got Willie, who you can't bank on him on a 4th and 6 inches.
Right.
At 6'3", 230.
Right.
It's like, but he shows up for the meals. He's on the bus. He's got you paying for, his medical care. It's stuff like that. So I think there's bits of that there, and I know we'll talk about that more in the next segment. But when you think, here's part of what drives this for me. The Dreamers are coming in. It's not like they're flying in first class. They're not even flying in coach and get dropped at the airport. I mean, you got those coming across the border are coming through dangerous and perilous roads just to make it safely on our side of the border.
Right.
And fleeing in many cases, at best, they're just fleeing unhealthy living conditions, really substandard for health and wellness. Mm-hmm. Let's not talk about the danger that some of them are actually fleeing.
Right.
Life and death situations. And whether their parents sent them or whether they came with parents or a relative or a friend of the family, for others, it's the cost. I mean, you hear these stories of people coming in from parts of Asia where families worked, saved to pay for you to be in a cargo hull of a ship and make it over here, weeks on the open sea. God knows what happens to you, what you have to survive to get here. Mm-hmm. Avoiding being swept up in human trafficking and all kind of stuff like that. I mean, it's very for an opportunity. And I'm not saying that we have to make sure everybody that comes in the door has, a place to stay and food to eat and a job and all these. I'm not saying that you have to provide that, but if they're willing to get here and then work to earn an opportunity, I'm hard pressed. They're willing to do what they got to do to get to school, not knowing the language, but they're going to learn the language enough to get a job. They're going to learn how to pay their taxes enough to support the system. They're going to learn how do I start a business? I'm saying they're going to do everything everyone else has to do to get a foot in the door. That, to me, you have to be a really callous individual not to support that. What is impressive to me, more than how much they're opposed, is what it says about their ability to hold on to their dream. Because it's like, in the face of that kind of adversity, in the face of politicians and a system that is pressing against them, they're willing to still fight. They'll go back and then come back. They'll get sent out and they'll find a way back. They'll get sent out and they'll go make it somewhere else and then come back a different way. I mean, their fight for their dream is unyielding. And that is impressive to me. What they represent in the spirit of a dreamer.